This is Thumbing Through the Archives, a weekly radio show and podcast focusing on Michigan history, airing every Wednesday night from 5:30 to 7 p.m. on WMIC 660 AM and 95.3 FM. Also streaming in podcast form at our website, senlacbroadcasting.com. Now your hosts Mike Gallagher, Nick Lean, and Erica Frisbee.
Okay, and we are back once again with another episode of Thumbing Through the Archives, a podcast exploring the oddities, curiosities, and crimes in Michigan's history. I'm Erica. I am the news director here at WMIC WTGV, and with me today,
I am Mike Gallagher from the Sanilac County News and a co-host of Sportsline.
And I'm Nick Lean, the assistant manager here at Sanilac Broadcasting.
The only reason I mentioned Sportsline this week is because our friend Eddie Fury went on a big trip this weekend to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald, and that's a little plug for our show because we covered
the Eddie Fitz all the way back in the day.
Yeah. I haven't re-listened to it. I don't really re-listen to many of our shows just because I don't like to listen to myself talk, but I feel like we did it justice.
In addition to going back through our podcast for our Edmund Fitzgerald episode, which you'll be going back very early for that, you may want to go back and listen to part 1 because this is part 2 in not a series, because series implies at least 3 or more.
So this is just a two-parter?
This is just a two-parter.
Okay.
This is part 2 of the passing on of the Haviland children, which is a case we began discussing last week.
Where we left off is the passing.
Yes. In 1865, 38-year-old Sarah Haviland and her 6 children fled in the middle of the night from Ypsilanti, claiming abuse by her second husband. Her first one had died young. She settled in Battle Creek with a couple other spiritualists, the most prominent of them being a Dr. Daniel J. Baker. She ended up taking in 2 other women, and the doctor starts teaching them how to talk to ghosts and be mediums. They start discussing going on the road with the powers that they exhibit, especially since Sarah seems to be contacting both her dead brother and a spirit, which she calls the Big Indian. He will be coming back up. And long story short, there are 3 children, 7 years and younger. And children of that age are generally hard to travel with.
Right. And just for a little bit of context, you mentioned that they planned on going on the road with this show.
Exactly.
At that time, it was not an extremely common thing, but it was something that people could do. You could be successful doing so.
Yeah, it was a proto Long Island medium.
Right.
Yeah, long story short, it seems that they did not want to take the children on tour. And after many months of hinting that something is going to happen to the children by winter, December 16th, 1865 rolls around, and Phoebe, now the youngest Haviland child, informs one of the neighbors that her siblings passed within the past week.
And that was our cliffhanger, which I was kind of upset about at first, but I am glad that we're kind of delving into the second half of this a little bit more. I was kind of expecting it to be kind of an open and shut thing at the end, but now I can tell that there's a lot more to it, so I'm looking forward to part 2. So I am ready to be smitten by the mitten, but I am just curious when you guys have been most smitten by this show. Which episode?
I did have a lot of fun with this past one, but that's just more so because of all the twists and turns. It's not my favorite episode.
Okay. It's not really one you can be smitten by either. It's kind of a sad one.
No, definitely. I feel like either Rattle Run.
That was a good one.
The Evangelista one.
Okay.
Or one of the John Norman Collin ones.
Okay.
A bit of me wants to stay away from the John Norman Collin series because that just feels like a gimme since I put so much time and effort into that.
Right.
I could pick any one of those ones and be like, that's my favorite, but
yeah.
If I can't pick any of the John Norman Collin ones, then I think Pichet would be my...
that was a good one too,
Pichet or Wilbraham. Those two kind of jockey for position.
Wilbraham, that was a fun one, yeah.
Yeah, I like that one. That was going to be one of mine. I was just kind of looking through our list here to see if any jumped out at me, but I really like the local, the Danny Hazard one. I like a lot. Just the stuff
I've gotten a lot of feedback from that one too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
then-
people remember him, you know.
Yeah, we've had a few messages on our Facebook about that one. Because I feel like the unsolved mysteries in the thumb that our listeners hear, there's maybe a little glimmer of hope that like maybe someone will come forward like, oh my gosh, we'll figure this out. Let's get to the bottom of this. And that's exciting to me. I also really like the Connected or Not one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah,
in terms of my unsolved cases, that's probably one of my prouder moments.
because that one could be solved.
I'm hoping
like,
one day,
Yeah.
I feel like with that too, you maybe drew connections that the general public at least hadn't really even considered.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun being able to give different perspectives and yeah.
Yep. And I was smitten by hogs walking down the street. So
that was a good one too.
It was a good episode overall.
Yeah, that was a really
it was a really good episode.
I remember going home and like telling Caitlin and the kids about that story, like because that's a good.
Yeah, we had a cool follow up with that too.
Yes, we did.
When we went to the grave site.
That was very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, whenever I think of the Hogtown episode, I also think about the fact that the guy who wanted to call it Hogtown to prove his point literally made a effigy of a pig and hung it on the front of the building of the guy that he was fighting with.
I'm getting smitten again.
Was that ever found or recovered? I wonder if that's...
I mean, if it's an effigy, presumably it got burned.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm going to guess no, which a bit of me is like, if it was an effigy that got burned, how close to the building was it?
Right.
Was this like hardy har har, like we're going to call it Pigtown, or was this attempted arson?
Right.
Don't you guys wish stuff like that happened nowadays?
Yes.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah. You only say that because you're not the news director.
Well, yeah, but if people just solve their problems with petty stuff like that,
Big
would be,
effigies.
would be a lot better off.
Yeah.
Ready to be smitten by the midden?
I think I am, actually. I think I'm ready. This part 2, we probably won't be as smitten by, but I am very interested in what's going to happen.
There's a lot of, I don't want to say moving pieces, but we definitely get into the nitty-gritty details. So, while we left off our last episode with a coroner's jury heading to Sarah's door on Saturday, December 16th, 1865, let us actually rewind a bit to the start of that week, Sunday, December 10th, 1865. According to later testimony by the home's residents, things were fairly typical. Mother Sarah headed off to church services in the morning while her boarders, Dr. Daniel J. Baker and Lizzie Merritt, stayed home with the children. While Phoebe was reportedly fine, the younger three, 7-year-old Arthur, 6-year-old John, and 4-year-old Mary Elizabeth, also known as Libby, were once again sick, continuing a pattern that had began not long after their arrival in Battle Creek. Lizzie Merritt would report that the children had especially been not feeling well in the month leading up to that time and had seemingly taken a turn for the worse that week, with the children saying they had headaches and were vomiting a bit. Still, despite Baker calling himself a doctor rather than asking him to care for the children, Sarah instead saw him off the next day. The snake oil salesman headed to Harmonia for a business trip with a plan for him to return Tuesday. Sarah would also take a quick trip that Monday, albeit into Battle Creek, to pick up some medical ingredients, including sulfur, cream of tartar, and molasses. She would later admit that she indeed put arsenic in the concoction, mixing the thick molasses syrup with the fine yellow powdered sulfur, the color and texture easily hiding the poison within. It should be noted that though sulfur was used as a laxative at the time and is used in some topical treatments now, usually for treating scabies and mites, and it can appear in trace amounts in medicine and food, ingesting more than a few grams of sulfur can poison someone in a way that is similar to cyanide. So, even without the arsenic, there's a chance that this concoction, just having that much straight up sulfur, could have been fatal to the kids anyways.
Mm-hmm. Like she was trying to hide the arsenic when the sulfur easily could have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also that kind of goes back to people not knowing the full use of different chemicals and just being like, this is new. Right. It must be good for you.
Right.
I might be getting ahead, but what do we think? Is she poisoning her kids because she thinks these spirits are telling her to do that? Or is she doing it to get famous? To be like, this is the woman, the medium who predicted her kid's death, you know, and like she's too dumb to realize that she's going to get caught.
Well, I technically have the answer, but it's kind of a spoiler.
Again, that's what I said. We're getting ahead of ourselves. I know we kind of briefly touched on that in the previous episode.
Both of those theories were strongly
I think it's a little
felt.
bit. I think it's a little bit of everything. I think she does actually believe that the spirits are telling her to do that, but she also benefits greatly from the children passing.
It's like a win-win for her.
Right.
So while other treatments were given to the children, like peppermint for nausea and even a dewormer, because it was a different time.
I was going to ask if that was common for the time. Okay.
Yeah, it was. Medicine back in the day, at least in the 1800s, was a wild thing.
Yes.
So they essentially knew, for instance, that sulfur could kill bacteria and fungus and all those gross, nasty things. Great, right? You would think that means that it will cure everything else inside you. That's not how it works.
Right.
But obviously the people who were making those claims weren't scientists, and if they were, they certainly weren't qualified enough.
Also, like you were saying back then, it was really like, oh, you have a headache, here, take this cocaine, smoke this opium, and you'll be all better.
Yeah, they very much looked at the effect and not the side effects.
It is kind of ironic that they're even giving them medicine at all.
Yes.
Because the doctor claimed that he could use his powers to take
we'll be getting there.
Sickness away from...
Oh, we'll be getting there.
Okay.
We'll be getting there.
Because if that were true, then why even bother giving him any type of medicine?
That's a good point. Also, do we know what was in his snake oil? Did we talk about that in the last episode?
It sounds like it was just typical
stuff
snake oil
just to make it feel good.
kind of thing, yeah. So yeah, poor kids got a dewormer, sulfur, but at least they also got molasses and peppermint. For all the medicine that they were getting, with the main one being the yellow sticky mixture in a teacup, it was agreed that Sarah was the only one giving them that medicine. Like, she was the only one who was administering treatment. While Sarah would only confess to giving the children this concoction in their final week, one could presume that she had been giving this to the children since their illnesses had reportedly began, slowly poisoning them over time. Other testimony would put the poisoning firmly beginning in August, while the family still resided in the Packer house. Lizzie reported that the children were vomiting on Monday, with Sarah consistently dosing them with her medicine once she returned from town with the ingredients. To a casual bystander, Sarah just looked like she was a concerned mother, constantly mixing up the concoction in a teacup and spoon-feeding it to her children, who took it with reluctance, often vomiting shortly after taking it and reporting extreme thirst. Hattie Hanner reported that following the first dose, the children went outside to play, but didn't even last 10 minutes before they were back inside, complaining of stomach pains. A drink of water resulted in vomiting shortly after, but after it subsided, the children resumed playing, Libby remaining inside while her brothers went back out. Though away from the shanty during this time, Baker seemed to know what was going on, telling patients and friends that he saw in Harmonia that the children were sick, with his tone implying that they were beyond help. He talked of how expensive a funeral would be, telling an acquaintance, one D. Claude Hawkshurst.
One more time.
D. Claude Hawkshurst.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so he told D. Claude Hawkshurst that he would just board them up. Whether he meant in a simple coffin or under the floorboards was anyone's guess.
Oh, okay.
That was the terminology that he used. Board them up.
Okay.
That is just general enough.
Right.
Where it's like, you hope to God that it's just simple board box.
Right.
But unfortunately...
But the expensive part of burying somebody in that time would be the plot, not the box.
Right. So it makes it sound like they're under the floorboards.
Right.
I am just like so upset right now. Like that is so just you describing like the mother like spoon feeding them this and them saying they don't want it and they're just still trying to go out and play and live their lives. Like as a father, like it's just so there's something about like your kids putting their trust in you and like this instinctive thing that children have where they look at you as a parent to like care for them and they just like without question like, oh yeah, it tastes bad, it makes us feel icky, but this is what's good for us. Like that's so evil. Like on the like these the good doctor and Sarah, like I hope they die. I hope they get hung.
Yeah.
Like I hope that like it's so dark.
It really is. Especially because, like, it didn't include it in the script because it just made me feel all sorts of ways. But, like, Lizzie Merritt in her testimony describes how obviously the children weren't feeling well, so they were crying. Their mouths were raw and red. And Libby, the youngest, basically got taken up onto Sarah's lap and rocked for like, the entire afternoon prior to her death.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
These poor little babies, like, their only crime, if there was one, was just being children
to the wrong person.
Yeah.
Right. They were just inconvenient.
They were, yeah.
Or convenient.
Yeah.
It's,
we still haven't gotten to that.
Yeah. In addition to taking note of these very cold comments of just boarding up the bodies of these children that live in your home, Hawkshurst also reported that Baker said the children had been drawing on him long enough.
Wow.
Wow.
Though one could assume he meant financially.
Right.
He could have literally as a fraud could anyways, he could have literally meant it, as he reported that he had been treating the children by exerting his magnetic influence on the children as he passed a hand over their faces.
Oh, he means like drawing on his energy.
Right.
Yeah. Speak clearly, Baker, honestly, because it's like, oh, I'm going to board them up. Does that mean in a box, under the floorboards? They're drawing on me. Your money or your energy, like...
It's pretty weird for casual conversation as well. Like, if he had the intention of killing these kids, wouldn't you just not say anything?
Well,
like,
that's the thing. He isn't killing the kids.
Oh.
I kind of wonder, though, if he's, like, riding off the high of, like,
right.
This lady's doing whatever I tell her to.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, that
Wow.
sense of power.
Wow.
I feel almost like he was bragging.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Like, look at how far she will go for me.
Right. Wow.
He says that they've been drawing on him long enough, be that money-wise, which, again, he didn't have, like, a stable job.
No.
Other than his, like, appointments in Harmonia.
Right.
And who knows how much he was actually getting paid for that.
He was paying to live with them at the boarding house.
Yes, exactly.
In the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, however, they were much diseased, and there was only so much the poor doctor could do.
Wow. We've had... On this show, we've had a lot of things described oddly, I would say, but much diseased is...
Rude.
Much diseased.
Pretty... I mean, what the image in your head, like, it just... I don't know, pretty messed up.
It's kind of dehumanizing.
Yeah.
When he returned on Tuesday, the children had not improved, with Sarah telling Hattie that the children were affected with scrofula, which is when tuberculosis bacteria attacks places other than the lungs, which usually causes the lymph nodes to swell up. However, the swollen lymph nodes, which were not present on the kids, are typically the only symptoms that scrofula presents. Like, there's no stomach, nausea, vomiting, or anything like that associated with that illness.
Right.
So, like, for as much crap as we give McGregor from the Sparlings, at least, like, some of his excuses were, like, more plausible.
Right.
Like, he was blaming patent medicine at one point, which is, like, considering all the stuff that they put into patent medicine, it's definitely a possibility. More so than scrofula as, like, a natural...
Right, and she's also not a doctor, and he's not a doctor, so how would they be able to
That was my
diagnose?
question.
Yeah.
Is there any record or, like, hint of, like, an actual doctor seeing them?
Oh, we'll get there.
Okay. I keep getting, like, three steps ahead here.
Great questions.
Yeah, it's...
Just walking spoiler alert.
Speaking of a walking spoiler alert, a guest the next night, a Frederick Wingate, a resident of nearby Bedford and somewhat acquainted with the Odd family, offered to get buttermilk for the children upon arriving at the home for a Wednesday night seance, and instead saw the two boys vomit a pale yellow liquid.
Ugh.
The family waved the offer off, saying that they would get the remedy themselves, and instead laid the children down in the next room behind the partition. When Wingate asked Sarah what was wrong with the children, she said they were just nauseous and she was doctoring them herself. A follow-up question about the family doctor revealed that there was none, unless you counted Baker, but it doesn't even seem like Sarah did.
Right.
Which...
And Baker was saying at that point that they were basically beyond saving.
Yeah. Before attending the circle with the family, as well as another acquaintance, Mary McAllister, Wingate gave the children water, seeming to anticipate another long session. However, instead of the usual 3 to 4 hour seance usually held that Wednesday, The session lasted only half an hour. Not because Sarah was rushing back to take care of her children, but because the spirits had seemingly told her that it was all for naught. While it was later agreed by McAllister and Wingate that Sarah had been faking, there was probably a sense of unease and eeriness as the group sat in the twilight, the gathering probably illuminated only by a few candles and the home stove. Sarah's voice pitched low as she channeled the big Indian, be it a true spirit or just a persona, as she seemingly writhed in agitation, part of her talk unintelligible before declaring that the papooses were sick and were going up to the big bunk. As if to confirm the spirit's prediction, one of the children vomited from behind the curtain, but no one rose to tend to the child, perhaps frozen in the believed futility of the gesture. Whether he thought any action was truly futile or not, Wingate would later testify that he urged the group to seek out a real doctor, that the suddenness of the deaths would raise a well-intentioned but still troublesome investigation and inquest into the situation.
So is Wingate like part of it, or is he like just a guy who's actually trying to be like, hey, we should do something? Like, or because that line kind of made it seem like I
think both. Like he's a guy who was maybe amused by it and then sees the gravity of the situation and is like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Okay. It's more so how Nick describes, like, he's just an acquaintance. He doesn't know them that well. Mm-hmm. That being said, he sees something, he says something.
Right.
And he also, like, by pitching it as like, hey, you guys should go to the doctor just so that you can avoid any trouble. How he pitched it may sound suspicious to us, and like it is suspicious, but also he was trying to appeal to them and their mindset,
right?
And let's be honest, they had a suspicious mindset,
right?
So it makes sense to me that he's like, hey, if not to like save your kids, like I understand what the spirit's saying, and like I'm not trying to go against that, but like you should at least, like, to be thorough and cover all your bases, seek medical attention.
Right.
Was he like a part of their cult, or at this point, I imagine like people are going and hanging out with them because it's like watching a good TV show. You know,
it's like, a little bit like that. Spiritualism, at least in Battle Creek, was so prevalent that there were a bunch of clubs, there were a bunch of groups, and like it doesn't say, for instance, if Wingate was looking to move from Bedford to Battle Creek, or if he was just like how much of an outsider he was. So it may have been one of those things of like, I don't know anybody, you don't know anybody, we'll stick together.
Right.
Like it may be a loyalty / acquaintance / relationship more because of proximity and convenience rather than
outside of this weird community.
It's one of those things where like I do truly wonder if like there had been a different individual instead of Wingate. No offense to Mary McAllister, but like for one thing, she was a woman, so inquiries wouldn't have thought to really talk to her.
Right.
So, like, it makes me wonder if anything would have happened one way or the other if he hadn't attended. Despite the fact that he suggested it and tried to frame it in such a way where it would be like, this is in your guys' best interest too, Sarah, defiant as the big Indian, allegedly replied, let them investigate or inquest. Let them do it. Understandably, Wingate left the home almost immediately when the seance ended that evening, carrying with him a pit in his stomach as he thought back to his offer of buttermilk for the children's nausea, knowing in his heart that no one was going out for the remedy after all. When Baker left for Harmonia again on Thursday, he took Hattie with him. She would later report overhearing a conversation between the doctor and Lizzie Merritt before they headed out. Lizzie, understandably worried as the children were still not improving, with Johnny complaining of stomach pain and Libby vomiting even more than before, asked what the family should do should the children die. Baker remarked that he wasn't sure, but there were still nails left over from building the shanty and could be used for simple coffin building. He also implied a plan to bury the children on the lot. While holes would be later found under the shanty floor, leading some to think the plan was to bury the children underfoot, later investigation determined that they were potato holes, which are holes dug in an earthen floor with a large deep opening that was covered by boards for storing potatoes during the winter.
I'm smitten. Potato holes.
This case has everything.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so potato holes. Jury is still out on whether or not there was an actual plan to bury the children on the lot. And also jury is still out on, like...
Were there potatoes in there? Were they...
Presumably, yes, but, like, when they were first initially found, like, it was found after the trial, so, like, they were demolishing the shanty, essentially.
Right.
And they found the holes, and obviously, knowing the story about the shanty and everything like that, the newspaper reporters who were there were like, oh my gosh, it's the graves that they were going to put the kids in. And then, like, literally the next week, a retraction had to be run.
Okay.
And it was like, yeah, no, those were just potato holes.
Oh, shucks.
Like, it was extra funny because, like, another...
You guys know potato holes? Remember those?
Right, which is part of the reason why I had to look it up, because I was like, given how much time has passed...
Could mean something else.
Like, if it turns out that it means something else and I have egg on my face, I swear to God, I'm going to go hide in a potato hole myself. But yeah, no words on if the potato holes that were found under the shanty were big enough for children.
Or if they were actually storing potatoes.
Apparently they were at least storing potatoes because of the fact that the correction had to get run.
Okay.
Like, if they hadn't found any potatoes in there or any, like, food or anything like that, they probably would have been like, yeah, it's definitely graves. But it sounds like they found something. Hattie also reported that Baker continued his otter marks in Harmonia, commenting again to patients and their families that he expected the youngest would be dead by the time him and Hattie got back to Battle Creek. Like, you can't get more specific than that.
Right. It's an odd thing to say.
And unfortunately, he was right, with 4-year-old Libby reportedly passing away around 6 p.m. on Thursday, December 14th, 1865.
That makes me wonder if, like, they have their doses down and know, okay, this isn't enough to kill them. We're just going to keep them sick, and then on this date that we've predicted, we're going to give them the killer dose. Or if they're just like, it looks like they're getting to the point where they're going to finally die.
It seems a little bit more of the latter, although some of the former could possibly be in there, because we'll get into the nitty-gritty details and I'll explain once we get to that point too. But for instance, Hattie reported that she went to bed and, like, while they were quote unquote alone, Baker and Sarah had a conversation on Tuesday night as if, like, they were kind of like checking in on where they were at.
Gross.
So it seems like if not, we have the dosage down, then it's like, hey, this is how much I gave him today. This is what happened. Like, more or less.
Right.
Like, it seems that...
Just wondering if it's like a cumulative thing that they're...
Considering the fact that they had been possibly getting poisoned since August.
Right.
If anything, I'm surprised that they didn't pass just naturally before. And by naturally, I mean, especially if they were allegedly getting this kind of medicine starting in August, they would be getting sick 2 to 3 days at a time. So it makes me think that they were working on the dosage.
Right.
That being said, it's also kind of weird that you would want to work on the dosage because of the fact that, like, if you're trying to predict my children are going to die by winter, you can just as easily do that by just waiting, not poisoning them, and then poisoning them in the winter.
Right.
Why are you starting to poison them in August?
Because it, like, brings attention to it and, like, validates what they're saying.
Which is fair. Libby passes at 6 p.m. on Thursday. Arriving a little over 12 hours before was her oldest brother, William, who had been summoned back from New York State due to the tragedies. It never says who summoned him back. Honestly, considering everything, I could see it being Nancy Jane because she works in the hotel. William shows up at 4 a.m., like literally comes straight from the train station, despite the fact that he knocks and, like, it's obviously my little siblings are in there dying. He still has to wait an hour before Baker lets him in. Which, like, maybe not suspicious, but still just kind of rude / it seems like Baker is once again, like, trying to show where he is on the hierarchy.
How much power he has.
Yeah. Even though he did have to wait that hour, he was at least present when Libby's spirit, quote unquote, passed on, as the spiritualists would say. This is actually where the term passing away is generally believed to have been popularized.
Like from this story?
Not this story, but from spiritualism.
Right. Okay.
So instead of saying that they died, spiritualists prefer to say that they passed away or they passed on.
So is it to say that there's like a period of time after what you and I would think of as somebody dying? There's a period there before the spirit then passes on, or is it just once they die?
I think it's just once they die, because like on the stand, Lizzie Merritt got into a small argument with the prosecutor because she kept insisting on saying passing on, but not explaining what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was like, well, they know. And it's like, no, they don't know.
Yeah.
Because it could mean someone's body stops breathing, they have no pulse, they are dead, and then they're sitting there for an hour like talking to the big Indian waiting for like the spirit to quote unquote leave the room.
Right. Yeah, no, to my understanding, it was once they were dead, they were passed on.
Okay.
Also home when Libby passed away was older sister Nancy Jane, one of her many visits throughout the week, at least when her work at the hotel would allow. It appears that it's due to that work that Nancy was not present for her brother's death the next day, as Sarah sent her back to the hotel, saying she was worried that the 13-year-old would lose her spot both on the payroll and the maid's dormitory if she stayed overnight again. However, due to that, she was not there when Johnny passed at 10 a.m. on Friday, December 15th, and was probably not there when Arthur passed away about 12 hours later at 11 p.m. Arthur supposedly told his mother not to cry as he lay dying, the picture of a young martyr in his final moments. Less than 12 hours after his passing, a group of men would arrive at his mother's doorstep, disquieted by the rumors swirling from the mouths of the neighborhood children and their concerned parents that 3 children had died, and by nefarious means. And we'll be right back. So the tale that would unfold following the deaths wasn't one of oddness, rather it was one of people fascinated with the oddness of others. When newspapers picked up the sordid tale, printing the first reports on Tuesday, December 19th, the children had passed about 5 days prior, and about 4 days had ticked by since Battle Creek resident and acting justice of the peace, P.H. Emerson, brought a coroner's jury to Sarah Haviland's doorstep. Something did not sit right with the justice, nor the rest of the jurors, with 3 doctors and at least 1 prominent lawyer coming along to handle examinations. Even Battle Creek's mayor, T.W. Hall, accompanied the investigators to the small home sitting near the train tracks at the town's outskirts. When the coroner's jury arrived, it was just after 9 a.m. on Saturday, December 16, 1865, and the family was gathering for breakfast. That seemingly included the 3 youngest children, who were laid out in the shanty's largest room.
I didn't want to ask, but I was kind of curious.
Yeah, so they were laid out in the largest room, waiting for burial. At the table was Lizzie Merritt, her brother Frank, who was kind of subleasing / living with them since October, and at least 2 of the still living children. It's not clear if it was William and Nancy. To me, it seemed more like William and Phoebe. Mm-hmm. But they didn't specify, I don't believe. While Sarah was reclined on the nearby lounge, appearing distressed but also possibly exaggerating that emotion for the jury's sake.
How long is this after they died?
This is Tuesday.
So a few days.
When this first gets reported by newspapers, it's Tuesday.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
But
this is Saturday.
So it's like about 12 hours.
Oh, okay.
It's within 12 hours.
After the final death.
After the final death. Yes.
Yeah.
Within 12 hours of the final death, there is a coroner's jury on the doorstep because Phoebe, before breakfast, had been out playing, and you know how kids talk. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Phoebe had an info dump, and understandably, the neighborhood kids took that to their parents, who took that to the authorities. In at least one report, allegedly, Phoebe also directly told like a local business owner who directly like told the mayor who put together the justice of the peace.
Right.
Long story short, by the time the jury was at Sarah's place, a handful of people knew about it, and that handful was growing larger by the second because it's a weird story. And it's the 1800s. Entertainment was little to nothing back then.
Right. Clearly.
So gossip was the way to get your entertainment.
Or seances.
Yep, or seances. So as the coroner's jury kind of descended on the Haviland household, the story was getting taken across the city quicker than anybody could have really expected. The jurors would later report that Sarah, the mother, seemed fatigued but not from crying and was acting the part of the invalid. That's an actual quote from the newspaper. So seemingly just acting like she wasn't really able to move, interested in eating, kind of like, I hesitate to say pathetic, but more so like...
She was hamming it up?
Yeah.
Fatigued but not from crying. That's pretty specific too.
Yeah. Well, considering the fact it's within the 12 hours that one of your children has died, they didn't know if it was the final one or not, because like for a hot minute they were worried that the whole family was going to be going down.
Right.
But once Lizzie Merritt confirmed, yeah, no, everybody eats the same food and all the rest of us are fine, it's just was the 3 kids, and these are the only things that were different, it kind of was like, okay.
Right.
They expected a lot more grief from her, even if she hadn't cried since like Thursday night when Libby died. I feel like they were expecting a lot more emotional drainage. So she refused to get up. Though they did question her a bit, they did not get far at first, as Sarah began to cry, protesting that she had already dealt with so much and that the questions were only adding to the pain. She did answer a lawyer's question of why she did not seek out a professional doctor or even help from her neighbors, and her reply to the first was due to lack of money, and reply to the second was due to lack of knowing anyone in the neighborhood, very quickly emphasizing to the jury that she was alone in the world save for the odd family she had assembled in her home. While she was questioned, the 3 doctors went to work, doing an initial examination of the bodies at the shanties before transporting them for further autopsy. There is some hints that the coroner who was heading everything up definitely did not trust Baker around the bodies whatsoever.
Right. Understandable.
He was like, if we leave these bodies with the family, even though they're asking us to pretty please do so, we're never seeing these bodies again. We're taking the bodies.
Right.
So Dr. Cox, C-O-X, who would later testify at the trial about the autopsies and the scrofula that Sarah claimed afflicted the children, he personally performed Arthur's autopsy. So the 7-year-old, the oldest. Both he and another doctor, Dr. S.S. French, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we have some good names.
Cool. Not to get off on a tangent, but I just think this episode has so many great names.
It really does, Mike.
There's one guy sitting at the table just named Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the brother Frank.
Brother Frank.
Yeah.
Dr. S.S. French noted alongside Dr. Cox that the examination of the mucus lining in the children's intestines showed inflammation, prompting the organs to be bottled up and shipped for testing by U of M chemistry professor, Dr. Silas Douglas. Dr. Douglas will later testify that he found 8 grains of arsenic in the samples that he got from the children, with 3 to 5 grains able to cause death. He also observed that the stomachs were very inflamed and that the reported symptoms displayed by the children matched arsenic poisoning. So the extreme thirst as well as the stomach pain, arsenic poisoning. He concluded the dosage was very large and given over the course of several days. He also noted that the children possibly could have died sooner and with less suffering, but by putting so much arsenic in her medicine doses, Sarah was inadvertently triggering the vomiting as the body tried to purge the obvious poison. The vomiting would flush out most of the arsenic, extending the pain and thus the cruelty as the dosages just went up.
Wow. That's horrible.
Yeah. It took several rounds of questioning and visits to actually get an explanation from the mother, with Sarah finally agreeing to sign a confession on Saturday, December 23rd, a week after the coroner's jury first assembled on her doorstep. What she signed off on is as follows. I came to Battle Creek last spring. I left a drunken husband with whom I and my children could have no peace, often driven out of doors after dark. As I believed in spiritualism, I came here hoping that I could have the benefit of the Lyceum for my children and expecting for my property to buy me a home for myself and my children. After coming here, I found I could not get it, as I had been promised by the lawyers, and had it not been for Mr. Baker's assistance, we should have suffered more than we did. She also notes that she applied to the Moral Police Fraternity, which was a local spiritualism organization, for assistance, but they did not assist her because the reason they gave me was because Mr. Baker boarded with me. They seemed to think that we ought to be married, but I did not feel as though I was obliged to marry a man because he had treated me kindly. After Lizzie Merritt came to board with me, she also helped me a great deal, had hard work to keep my children where they should be, the little boys especially. I had always tried to bring them up honestly, but as they grew older, I saw the manifestations of their father in them, and I was all the time worrying if they were out of my sight for fear they would get to stealing or the father would get the two little ones. When I looked forward to the time when my children should be men and women, I feared for them that they would have to suffer by transgressing the laws of the land, and I thought as I had been the author of their existence in a measure, it was better to send them to the spirit world while they were innocent, and if anyone had to suffer, I would do it instead of them. These are the many reasons that have actuated me for the past 5 weeks, although I kept them locked up in my own bosom. The two little ones, John and Libby, their father was a thief and a drunkard, and I feared if he took the children from me, they would walk in his steps, and as I looked to the future, I saw a worse fate for my daughter Libby if he had her. If I had received the love and sympathy I ought to have received when I became a widow and a stranger in a strange place, it might have been different. I walked the streets many days to sell books to obtain something for my children's comfort, but with very few exceptions, I sold none. I have no one to blame but myself and the trials that surround me. I do not wish those who have been kind to me to suffer on my account, therefore I make the statement that you will blame no other. I feel that what I have done is to be settled between me and my God and the spirit world. Monday morning, a week ago, I came up to town to get, and then she explains the coming to town to get the ingredients for the medicine. Mm-hmm. But how many times I gave it to them, the children now dead, I do not recollect, for from that time till after I was called to court, I knew not half of the time hardly what I was doing. I could not give a clear statement of what followed. What I said when I was questioned the other day is as near right as I can remember, except getting the arsenic. No one in the house knew there was arsenic. I don't know as there is anything more. I suppose that it is all that is necessary to say. I took care of my children and watched over them until the last breath. There is nothing more that I know of. I make the statement voluntarily. No one knew what I was going to say. The girls questioned me, but I did not tell them. If I had never married that drunken husband, I should have never been in this trouble. I know and understand that the statement made by me could be used as evidence against me. No person has offered me any inducements if I would make the statement. No person has threatened me in any manner. When I walked down to Marshall, I had a chance to talk with Daniel Baker. This was after the examination commenced and while they were under arrest, but we did not talk about that subject. Mr. Baker had been like a father to me and my children, and I am very sorry that I have caused him a moment's trouble. Oh. I make this statement wholly and entirely voluntarily. So that's her statement. Initial thoughts?
She's covering for Dr. Baker.
I hate her. I hate her so much. Like, I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize to me. I don't care.
I don't want to entirely blame her because we haven't even gotten to Dr. Baker yet, but she's essentially blaming her ex.
Yeah.
Right.
And more or less saying because I screwed up by marrying him, I had to kill my kids. And
I like the part where she says, if people had treated me nicely like I deserved.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so much.
If you would have just helped me out, I wouldn't have had to do this.
Yeah.
The entitlement.
Right.
I haven't seen this level of entitlement in old-timey cases. This is modern level entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's insane.
So when Sarah's confession hit the newspapers, publicity for the case had truly reached a fever pitch, with communities beyond Battle Creek and Ypsilanti aghast at what Sarah Haviland had done. While some were shocked by the act itself, others, like those who knew her in Ypsilanti, were just straight up appalled. This was not behavior befitting the relative of some of the community's best respected members, nor the wife of a dear friend in the community. When the Ypsilanti commercial paper responded to Sarah's confession in January 1866, so she gave the confession in December, they finally got around to replying to it the next month. When they responded in January, it was only a few weeks before she and Baker were due to be officially arraigned in court, having to wait for the new court term to begin for the proceedings. While the Ypsilanti paper acknowledged that Sarah was from a good family and that her relatives who were still alive and living in Washtenaw County were respected, that was about the only good things that they had to say about her. The newspaper laid out the facts that were known in Ypsilanti but not in Battle Creek.
Right.
These were the facts that we had discussed last episode, including
what they knew her as before she left, basically.
Yes. Yeah. And they were so appalled by her and also by her making excuses that they went so far in the article to quote scripture at her and scold her for her actions.
Old-timey newspapers.
Yeah. So between their deaths in December and their mother's arraignment in February, the bodies of Arthur, Johnny, and Libby were sent back to Ypsilanti, if not by the request of their father, John Leonard, then due to Sarah's maternal family making the arrangements. Public mourning was reported in the Washtenaw area. According to the Washtenaw Historical Society, all 3 children were originally buried in Albin Cemetery, which sat on a small ridge overlooking swampy lowlands around 1,000 feet directly north of the present Albin Cemetery near Friends Church, a Quaker church, southeast of Ypsilanti. Most of the bodies in that cemetery were removed in April 1886 for disinterment elsewhere. It is not clear / if I'm going off of Find a Grave, it seems like they are still in the old Albin Cemetery, though. All 3 children's death dates, at least on their headstones, read December 16th, 1865, the date of discovery, not of when they actually passed. Meanwhile, the remaining children remained in the state. They were trial witnesses, after all, moving back to Ypsilanti and either in with family friends or distant relatives. I'm not sure which, but for instance, Nancy reportedly moved in with somebody called Mr. Graves in Ypsilanti. They did not make it clear if this was a family friend or like a relative or anything like that. So, but just given everything, you would assume that there's some kind of close connection there.
Right.
This isn't really important, and honestly, I never found a way to put it into the script, but you know how I said that like Sarah didn't immediately head to Battle Creek from Ypsilanti when she ran away? It's because she did technically try and make a go of it in Washtenaw County. She moved into another boarding house and took a roommate, which was all well and fine, but the roommate was a prostitute. And sex work is legitimate work. That's not the problem there. The problem was the fact that Sarah did not tell her landlord.
So she got kicked out?
Yes.
Okay.
She got kicked out both because she had basically an illegal roommate. The roommate would have been fine if the roommate hadn't been doing business at the boarding house.
Right.
But unfortunately, the landlord caught the roommate as she was finishing up an appointment. Sarah had several chances to do things correct.
Right. That's why I'm so...
hate her so much.
I just, yeah. Just even from the story so far, without you telling us about things like that, it just seems like there's been so many opportunities for her to do the right thing, like with her grandfather. Was it giving her 40 acres and a house and like just squandering all of it and doing anything but like accepting responsibility?
Yeah.
And again, the entitlement.
Yeah.
You obviously know you're not supposed to do that. Like, you can't.
Right. No, like, honestly, that goes back to, like, almost everything she does. Because it's like, why does she get kicked out of the boarding house? Because she does something that she knows she's not supposed to do. Why is she having so much trouble in Battle Creek? Because she did something that people told her not to do.
Right.
But at the same time, the entitlement also manifests in the whole, like, well, people should have told me. Then I would have known better. And it's like, they did tell you.
Right.
Several times. Several people. At different portions. At different points.
Yeah.
But you kept going. Just, yeah. It's frustrating because, again, there are so many points where it's like, this should have been a new start. This should have been, like, your big break.
It's almost like self-sabotaging.
Honestly, yeah.
Which would be fine if she didn't involve...
her kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get your children involved, like, it's beyond, okay, that's your problem. You know, it becomes...
Right.
It makes me think about, like, Mike, you asked last time as to, like, why the kids had to come to if it was just her delusions and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know, like, the self-sabotage, like, it just feels like she had to bring... She may have just been a narcissist full on.
That's what it seems like.
Right.
If I can't have what's good, nobody can.
Yeah.
And also the fact that in her own confession, she's like, since I was the author of their existence.
That was a pretty wild line, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the line, like, I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it, but she took it to another level. Like, this is almost God complex. I'm not sure.
Right.
if I'm armchair diagnosing, I would say that Sarah is a strong contender for narcissism personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So the remaining kids moved in with either family friends or distant relatives, while the shanty's adults, Sarah, Baker, Hattie, and Liz, were all seemingly imprisoned, with Sarah and Baker verifiably so. It was a little bit less clear if Hattie ever stayed overnight in the jailhouse. She was 17 at the time of the arrest, so there's a chance that they were like, nah, just actually go back to your parents kind of thing.
That's like an adult back then, though.
Oh, I know.
You know, there's a chance they were...
It's really hard to say sometimes.
Yeah.
While it was unclear for Hattie, newspapers made it abundantly clear that even after being bailed out of jail, Lizzie Merritt tried to stay there just to stay close with Sarah and Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Can you say cult?
Right.
He's got them like right under his thumb.
If I was the person who bailed her out, I'd be so upset.
Yep.
This probably was Frank.
Probably.
He's like, are you
Frank.
kidding me? So on February 20th, 1866, Sarah and Baker were arraigned during a special court session with trial to take place at the end of May and the beginning of the next special court session in the county. Sarah was described as looking indifferent with a pale and cold face, save for her flushed cheeks with their thin nose and tightly pressed lips giving off a fixed and determined nature. She stood at above medium height, but still shorter than her alleged co-conspirator, Baker, who was described as tall and dark complexioned with a whiskered and smiling face.
We discuss this a lot on this show, but the way women were described in newspapers compared to men,
right?
Back in the day, like, they're just so different. Like,
they like to call women short and stout a lot.
Right.
Yeah. If not
Sturdy.
stout, squat.
Sturdy, yeah, squat.
Yeah, because that, first of all, the description was a lot longer for hers.
Yeah.
It also makes her sound like a very terrible person. Whereas this guy was like, he was short, but he had a smiling face. He had whiskers.
It's very regal sounding.
Yeah, dark hair.
Yeah, Sarah sounds very regal, kind of like severe, and Baker sounds like
Just a guy.
a goof. Yeah.
Right.
But that's happened a lot in these older stories.
Can you say sexism?
Right.
There was no sexism in the 1800s.
Yeah.
No, just look at how they handled marriage and everything like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, descriptions are funny. Also, Baker looked a bit blanched at the prospect of being in court, despite his and Sarah's best efforts to keep him out of suspicion. After all, as both of them would point out, he had gone on business trips during the final and tragic week, and only Sarah had been tending to the children with medicine. Still, investigators could not shake the feeling that Baker was involved somehow, especially given how easily he talked of the children's deaths to others while on those business trips, and how willing he was to build the coffins rather than inform authorities of the odd goings-on that would require said coffins.
It was also kind of odd. In her confession, she still denied the arsenic. She said nobody in the house knew about the arsenic.
Except for her.
Oh, she said, okay.
She was essentially trying to say, like, nobody else did it. It was all me.
Okay. I guess I misunderstood.
No, that's fair.
Okay.
It was worded very weirdly. But yeah, she essentially was trying to clear everybody else, which, like, I feel like, yeah, she cleared Hattie and Lizzie. Granted, I was never really suspicious of them.
No, they're just kind of roped into it.
Yeah, but Baker, let's be honest, it's very interesting that, like, oh, you got the medicine? I'm heading off.
Well, even if he didn't directly do it, like, he obviously had a lot of power over her.
A lot of power.
It's like a Charles Manson thing.
Yeah.
I think you used that analogy last week, too.
Yeah. Lots of influence. So the spring term of Calhoun County courts began Tuesday, May 22nd, 1866, with the case's preliminary hearings. The case was called at 11 a.m. and a jury was impaneled by 3 p.m. This always cracks me up, but just because I think back to how this portion of the script drove Mike up the wall last time we talked about it. So remember how during the John Norman Collins case, there was a bunch of challenges to the jury process?
Right.
The defense in this case challenged the jury 19 times.
Not a bad strategy.
No. So yeah, 12 jurors were impaneled following 6 challenges by the prosecution and 19 by the defense, with the case's publicity making the jury a bit difficult to sit for obvious reasons.
But by the end, the jury was made of 12 white, straight
honest
males with regular features and dark hair.
Did women sit on juries back then?
Not
real?
this far back.
Yeah.
considering the fact that like the McPhee case was one of the first times that I saw.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. And that was like the 1920s. Mm-hmm. This is 1860. We have a while to go. So yeah, more great names. So the prosecution was headed up by attorneys J.C. Fitzgerald and T.J. O'Brien. Doesn't J.C. Fitzgerald and T.J. O'Brien just seem like a lawyer duo from like a TV show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The 70s procedural.
Yeah. Right. So and then defense was led by William A. Baldwin.
Yeah. Billy Baldwin.
Billy Baldwin. And then he was assisted by two attorneys, only identified in newspapers as Noyes and Porter.
That's
now
great.
We're talking.
Oh. That's a show.
Yeah, Noyes and Porter.
With Billy Baldwin playing himself.
Is it spelled like noise, like you would expect it to be spelled?
Noyes. So no yes?
Well, let's stick with noise.
Yeah.
I prefer noise too.
Yeah. I'm picturing a guy just shouting at inappropriate times during the trial. It's pretty bad reporting by the paper too.
You know how we have one of the books of like Sanilac County through the 1800s kind of thing?
Yeah.
I was looking through the Calhoun County equivalent. Could not find them. The prosecution opened the case with a plain fact. Baker was a spiritual doctor who claimed to have visions, and Sarah believed in spiritualism. The defense would stake their strategy in an insanity plea, with Sarah having said at one point she was not aware of her own actions after a certain point that fateful December week. The courtroom was crowded with spectators eager to see the killer mother and her alleged lover. While most spectators were local, some were old neighbors from Ypsilanti, including her second husband at one point, who came to visit her at the jail with a cheeky "How are ya, Mrs. Baker?" leaving her agitated and the jailers bemused.
Is that also the father of the dead kids?
Yep.
Yeah. It's not...
If anything, a bit of me is like, that's petty, and then the other half of me is like, considering the fact of like, not
basically
only did
took
she
his kids from him,
like she not only ran away with your kids, but she has been just dragging your name up and down like the west side of the state, essentially.
Doesn't seem angry enough to me.
We also don't know for sure that he wasn't an obnoxious drunk.
That's fair.
I mean, he could have been.
Well, weren't there neighbors saying like, no, it wasn't that bad?
He could be obnoxious,
he
but
could be loud. He could be loud when he was drunk.
But he wasn't abusive, no.
Right.
Which define abusive in 1860.
At least abusive in that he wasn't doing what Sarah was saying that he was doing.
Right.
If anything, cool as a cucumber, just keeping it to a simple, "How you doing, Mrs. Baker?"
Yeah.
So has the doctor been charged with anything?
Basically, accessory / second degree.
Okay.
There was also one spectator who came all the way from New York State, and that was Sarah's father, Peckham Rathburn. It does not seem that he visited Sarah at the jail, or that, if he did, it was a quiet, private, sorrowful, and perhaps terse occasion. Indeed, Sarah seemed to spend most of her time in jail reading, though the county sheriff and his wife reported Sarah during the height of the trial did attempt or consider an attempt to break out of the prison with a fire poker. Do not ask me how a prisoner had access to a fire poker. It was a different time.
Mm-hmm.
One night after lockup, the sheriff's wife hears shouting and commotion, and she's like, "That's above my pay grade. Hubby, go get him." Mm-hmm. And he goes up and sees Sarah trying to talk with Baker. It's a small county jailhouse.
Right.
It's essentially the same hallway. So Sarah's like essentially trying to talk to Baker, trying to get something going in an escape. She has a fire poker for some reason. The sheriff comes in to confront her. She basically charges him, not to necessarily stab him, but at least to scare him. Long story short, he gets the poker away from her, and if this was modern day, she would have got something slapped on, like an extra charge or something or other, but they were just like, she's already crazy.
Did she get like solitary confinement, or just like, hey, don't do that anymore?
Hey, don't do that anymore, and she essentially dissolved into a pile of tears, which is part of the reason why they were just like, she's
You're
losing
crazy.
it.
Yeah.
No more fire pokers for you.
That was an interesting bit during the trial.
Yeah.
Several witnesses were called by the prosecution to say their piece. Though Sarah tried to insist that she killed her children to spare them from fate, one Battle Creek acquaintance recalled Sarah saying that Baker had been nicer to her before Hattie Hannes and Lizzie Merritt had moved in with him, and once when overhearing a conversation between the acquaintance and Sarah about John Leonard, the second husband, Baker had remarked that he was sick of hearing about John Leonard, though he referred to Leonard as a racial slur common for the time for
an Irish immigrant.
Thank you. There seemed to be a hint of jealousy of like, I need to get back on top in Baker's affections.
Right.
So when the defense opened their case on Friday, June 1st, 1866, they were already facing an uphill battle, aside from the obvious...
Yeah, because she already admitted to it.
Right. Aside from the obvious facts of the case, literally the prior day, so that Thursday, had seen the judge make clear that he did not consider belief in spiritualism as proof of insanity, which the defense seemed to be riding on that of like...
They were counting on that.
Yeah, like, they're spiritualists. They're verifiably crazy.
Right.
No, that's not how it's going to work, was the judge's ruling on that. So obviously that dealt a very large blow to the insanity defense. Still, the defense pushed on, calling prior acquaintances of Sarah's who were sympathetic, including another spiritual doctor who claimed to have met Sarah in Albion 8 years prior, so when Sarah was actually still married to the first husband. And this doctor, like Baker, had not studied medicine at all, but alleged that he let spirits practice through him, which feels like medical malpractice 101, but I'm also not a lawyer or a doctor, so...
Right.
So a doctor who says that he lets ghosts practice through him says that Sarah's insane.
Oh, man.
That's kind of like Benny Evangelista getting called insane by his doctor.
Right.
It should be noted that the defense did acknowledge that Sarah did indeed poison her children. Even... this was kind of wild. In general, the defense is supposed to naysay everything that the prosecution presents, especially if it looks bad for their client. Maybe it's because they acknowledged from the get-go that she did poison the kids, so they were like, let's call a spade and not like be mean just to be mean.
Who even cares about that stuff? Let's focus on this stuff.
All this to say, usually you don't see the defense praising the prosecution witness for their evidence presentation. But they were so smitten by Dr. Douglas of U of M and his work with the arsenic and the stomachs that they called it ingenious and forcible. They were basically like, this is the next medical breakthrough. And to be fair, he was a leading figure in his field. But like, again, you usually don't see the defense so complimentary of the prosecution. But not only were they like, yes, she did poison her kids. Not only that, but they're also saying she poisoned her kids and the guy that they brought in to prove it did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's odd.
It was the 1800s. That's what
I'm just... Tip of the hat to you, fine sir.
Essentially. Yeah, I was going to say, nowadays, like, maybe very begrudgingly in, like, closing
in
statements.
Private.
Yeah.
Like, in closing statements or...
in private, after the verdict is handed down and everything like that. Aside from that niceness, though, the defense also attempted to argue that Sarah was acting under a delusion that the children would be better off in the spirit world, especially since she could still commune with them with her medium powers. So they were essentially like, she's crazy and she was operating under the delusion that, like, it'll be okay. I can still talk to my kids because I'm a medium.
And
I just don't have to do all that annoying parent stuff of, like, feeding and clothing and bathing them.
Technically, they were better off in the spirit world, too, because they weren't being poisoned by their mother.
Technically.
If I was a if I was a defense lawyer, I mean, I'd be grasping at straws.
That's kind of what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
At least that's what she's doing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the defense also attempted to claim that John Leonard had attempted parental kidnapping at least once since Sarah had fled the prior year, and also
so he did try and get the kids back.
Wait a second. Just wait a second.
I should know better.
They attempted to claim that he did so, just as they attempted to claim that insanity runs in Sarah's family, which is a bold thing to say when, like, you know, half of her Ypsilanti family is, like...
right there.
Right there, and her father
fairly
came...
normal.
And her father came all the way from New York.
And seemed relatively successful.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very bold move on both parts.
Yeah.
But proof of those 2 points, despite them making them, were not actually presented, with the latter point being denied by the judge as there was no true or proper expert witness on the subject of the family's sanity. So the defense also called attention to Sarah having twitches and spasms but not full-on seizures, with Sarah having 2 such spells in courts, most notably while the prosecution was talking. While it is possible that there was something more neurological going on with Sarah, and that her spasms were legitimate, it is hard to say given the length of time that has passed, the fact that she is dead, and the lack of medical knowledge of the time about most neurological and psychological disorders. That being said, the courtroom was crowded as the 15-day trial drew to a close, with all space being used. The jury was given their charge at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, June 7, 1866, and by 7 p.m. they had returned with a verdict for both Baker and Sarah. Guilty on all charges. Baker attempted to proclaim his innocence, but was rebuked harshly by the judge, who said he had instead corrupted several innocent women.
Yep, that sounds about right. Well, I mean, she wasn't necessarily innocent, but he did corrupt her at least.
Yeah. Baker fainted in response.
Ever the showman. The good doctor.
My stars.
So he faints, and Sarah rushes to his side with a shrill little cry, and she throws her arms around him and starts tenderly caressing his face to wake him back up. And he does come to. In the face of her own guilty verdict, Sarah recanted her confession.
Oh my God.
It's always a good move.
Asserting her innocence and saying the children were better off in the spirit world and that she would join them in heaven one day. Bold claim, Sarah. Let's see how it works out.
She recanted her statement and then said, well, they're better off.
Yes. With that, both Sarah and Baker were sentenced to do hard labor and solitary confinement for the rest of their life at Michigan's Jackson Prison. But as you know, that obviously can't be the end of our story. So we'll be right back. We are back. So despite a life prison sentence usually being the end of the road, that was only the case for one of the two convicted spiritualists. While Baker would be dead within 5 years of their sentence, reported dead as of September 10th, 1870.
How old would he have been?
He would have been about 48.
Okay.
Sarah actually survived her prison sentence. How did she do that? By being the...
Spiritually.
Worse. By being the nanny of the prison warden's children.
Oh no. Oh, man.
Oh. Again,
Sorry.
I really do not like her.
Man.
She's very good at what she does, though.
Oh, she is.
She was sentenced to hard labor, wasn't she?
Yes.
That's not hard labor.
In some fairness to Sarah, there were very few women imprisoned at Jackson, with the number dwindling until 1882 when Jackson became an all-male prison, save for Sarah Haviland, who remained in her post at the request of the warden.
Wow.
I want you to kind of imagine it like a prison administration, but also think of it kind of like White House changing administrations. So it's like every 4 years there's a new family. Mm-hmm. And she's there with every single one of those families.
Oh, really? It's not just one...
Wow.
Nope. It's not as if one warden liked her and was like...
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No. It was as if, okay, this is your job, this is your house, and this is your built-in nanny.
Do you think that's how she ended up in that role for so long? Like, people didn't realize who she was?
Yes and no.
Or whoever, was in charge of filling that position, she wiggled her way in.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's really hard to say. I wasn't able to find anything that directly said this is why she got put with the children. Mm-hmm. But that is how things shook out. With the warden's family living on site, officials felt a feminine touch was still needed in certain areas, like housekeeping and children rearing. And you couldn't very well ask male prisoners to look over your children like you could ask a woman, even if said woman showed a propensity for poisoning children.
Right. Still a different time.
It's still a different time. You can't ask men to do that.
Right.
So Sarah aged...
You would think the blanket statement of you can't ask prisoners to do that would be
enough, but no, it's the gender actually plays into it a lot.
Right.
So Sarah, aged 54 in 1882, was allowed to stay on as the housekeeper and nanny, serving under several administrations and families. To several wardens' children, she was known as Aunt Sarah. It was the wardens and their families that ultimately vouched for Sarah. Though she was denied a pardon in 1891, she was released on an unconditional pardon in 1896 after 30 years in prison.
Wow.
Sarah, who was 68 when released, had been pardoned after she claimed, via her pardon application, that she had been under Baker's spell completely when she committed the murders.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but still.
Just way it gets better/worse. In addition to swaying her with the promise to marry her once the youngest children were out of the way, even though, again, remember in her original confession,
she never had any intentions of marrying him.
Sarah alleged that Baker also hypnotized her into doing his will. Another possible reason why the pardon was granted was because Sarah seemed to imply that she would be completely leaving the state and be out of the authorities' hair once and for all once pardoned, with her plan to go live with Phoebe in Ontario.
But it's been 30 years. You're not in any authorities' hairs. That's what I don't get.
Oh, I know.
You would also think if you were getting an unconditional pardon that you should be under the watch of authorities.
Yeah.
But this was Aunt Sarah Haviland.
Yeah.
Of those recommending Sarah for her pardon was the warden currently overseeing her in 1896 and his family, 3 previous wardens and their families, and the prison's chaplain. It also appears that a misconception was shared around that time that Sarah was actually illiterate, which possibly raised public favor and sympathy in her favor, as she seemed to have been completely taken in with the con man and his wiles. However,
she sold books when she was...
And she was noted to be reading whenever she wasn't in court.
Right, yeah. But 30 years had passed.
Is that what happened with you?
Yeah.
Some can write and not read.
Yeah, I could read for a decent amount of my life.
And then after high school, it just all went away.
Yeah, 30
I didn't need it anymore.
Yeah.
So was there any indication over that 30 years of her going back to the spiritualism?
If anything, like once she was away from the public, once she was away from spiritualism
and there was
in general,
no way she could make it like a way to profit or for fame.
Right.
Like once she was pretty isolated and couldn't use spiritualism as a way to gain a community,
right,
she seems to have lost interest in it.
It's convenient.
I mean, let's be honest, cults thrive on the fact that people are looking for community. Still, for all the support she received, there were definitely others who spoke out against the pardon, with one anonymous Washtenaw County citizen decrying the pardon as follows. This one was entertaining, honestly. So, former community member who knew Sarah. It seems very strange to hear so much praise going the rounds of the paper about, as they call her, Aunt Sarah Haviland. God forbid that I should ever entitle her or call her by that endearing name. I was brought up in the neighborhood where she lived. Her life under a short time before the murder of her 3 children had been spent in Augusta Township, about 3/4 of a mile north from Whitaker's Corners. Ira Haviland, her first husband, was an easy sort of man, not a bad neighbor, nor a very active one. His wife, Sarah, was forever on the road with her children, going somewhere. So this neighbor is saying that even before Ira died, she was doing her on the road, will you feed my kids for me kind of thing.
Right.
The neighbors tired of her oft-repeated visits. If she found the hostess sick, it made no difference as to her visits, for she would get her own supper before leaving for her home. Why do those in trust, or those that have been in trust over our murderers, seem to pity a mother who, for the sake of a man's advice, would murder those 3 little innocent ones? Could I lead you back 30 years, those who seem to honor that woman called a mother, to the Ypsilanti Old Quaker Meeting Home, 7.5 miles south of the city, and on a cold, gloomy day, go inside the cold little old church and see weeping eyes over those 2 little innocent ones, all bloated and of a waxen hue, and 2 little caskets side by side, lying in death's cold embrace. One, little Libby. I think the name of the other was Johnny. I shall never forget the gloom that came over me as they were about to go to the cemetery with those 2. The word came, "Do not bury them. There will be another here tomorrow morning." And those little bodies all laid alone in the old church through the dreary night. I had seen enough to last me through life. And what became of the man, Dr. Baker? He was shut in a dungeon and after 2 years died. He was not a mother, nor had he the love of the children which a mother should have had. Her son Will came home while those little ones were in spasms, and a daughter, Phoebe, and she tried to induce them to drink of the same. Now look to that woman and release her. Do our laws become void because we have some sympathy? God forbid. We cry for justice and not sympathy. Oh, she has been so good, allowed privileges against justice. So good, as many are good, because they dare not to be any other way. Why not call back Dr. Baker and Mudgett and liberate them? And a quick note, Mudgett is referring to, I can't remember his full actual name, but Mudgett was the real name of H.H. Holmes, who was considered America's Jack the Ripper. Mm-hmm. This is relevant because Mudgett, H.H. Holmes, had literally earlier that summer been executed. Mm-hmm. So she's essentially saying, oh, we're pardoning an actual murderer. Let's call the other murderers back then.
Right.
Because they deserve it too, right?
Right. It does seem like this person is misremembering some information, but the general point stands. They're right.
Yeah. It's very interesting that they included the detail, or at least the claim, that Sarah tried to get William and Phoebe to take the poison too, when that was never...
Well, and the fact that there was a funeral for two of the kids, and then they said to...
Not quite a funeral. It's more so they were prepping for the funeral.
Okay.
And then they were about to head out to the cemetery, and we're like, no, we're going to hold off on the burial and the subsequent funeral for another day because another body's coming.
But that didn't happen, right?
It's hard to say, honestly, because for one thing, I don't know the timing of when the bodies, you would presume that the bodies would be sent together.
Right.
I have no idea, though. They never specified, this is as specific as a timeline to the movement of the bodies as we get. And as you can see, considering the emotional tenor of the piece, we can't quite believe it.
But also, the fact that they said that Dr. Baker died after 2 years, that was incorrect as well. Didn't you say it was 5 years?
They got sentenced 1866. He died 1870. So 4 years.
Okay.
It's one of those things where, it's hard to say if they completely misremember.
Right. It had been 30 years, too. So.
Right. It's hard to say if they are just making claims that suit their argument.
Right.
Or if they're just, it's been a long time, and so they can't remember if it was 2 years or 4 years or 6 years or some other even number.
Or it's also just like the urban legend thing with how many...
Right.
How a story changes so many times depending on how many people it goes through.
Right, exactly. So as if proving the dissenter true, Sarah did not end up settling in with her daughter, but instead in a house of industry, which is a cross between a workhouse that employs and houses destitute women and a settlement house, which was gaining popularity around that time, which provided education, vocational training, and community, usually to immigrant communities. Mm-hmm. She had actually donated 50 cents toward the building of the industry house she now lived in while she was still back in prison. The organizer of the industry house came to do a big old lecture. Mm-hmm. The newspaper made a big deal about the fact that Sarah was the first to donate, providing an example to all the male prisoners. But long story short, her 50-cent investment paid off because she had somewhere to live after getting her freedom, whether or not she deserved it or not. Mm-hmm. But it was at this settlement house that she passed away on April 3rd, 1906, at age 78.
Wow.
Nancy Jane had passed years before her mother was pardoned, and William seemed to try to distance himself from his mother's legacy, perhaps purposely misspelling his family's name on his second marriage's certificate. If the children ever did reunite with their mother, it was not reported. It was a family matter, a trauma to be kept private. Still, you have to wonder what Sarah's remaining children had thought of their mother over all those years. Did they attempt to understand her reasoning and forgive her? Or did they put her from their mind, bury her as their siblings had been buried all those years before? Did Sarah ever ask for forgiveness? And perhaps more importantly, did she ever truly regret her choices, supposedly made for the sake of a man? These answers we will never know, but they will linger on our minds, much like the story does in the subconscious of Battle Creek. And that's the end of my script. What are y'all thinking?
Are there any photos of any of these people anywhere?
I checked.
Yeah.
Because it was the 1800s and...
It was a special thing.
It was a very special thing.
It wasn't quite the happy ending I was hoping for.
I was hoping they both would be put to death.
That's what I was hoping. I mean, it worked out well for Baker because he passed fairly quickly.
I can handle that.
Well, I mean, we were rooting for them to die.
They deserve to die.
Worked out well for you. Worked out not so well for him.
Right, obviously, but yeah.
Correct. It worked out well for the ending Mike and I would like to.
Yes.
I would have
the fact that she lived to be 78 is kind of
very disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I wanted both of them to swing.
I'm sorry.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Michigan has a weird history when it comes to execution. We'll have to get into that in a different episode.
That'd be kind of cool.
Was that really not allowed even back then?
Not necessarily allowed. There was just one exception in like the whole of Michigan history. And that
would be an interesting episode.
Yeah.
And I'll cover that at a different time. Obviously not today, because for one thing, obviously there is just no more time to squeeze all that detail into this. And also she was a woman. They generally didn't like back then to...
Right.
It was half the recommendations from like the wardens that got her out, as well as the fact that it was one of the last acts by a governor who was leaving office.
Right.
So he didn't care.
Right.
He was like, this is just a thing to like possibly get me like one last good grace in the public eye before I retire.
Right.
How would that get him good grace?
Because she was Aunt Sarah.
She was Aunt Sarah. There were at least the Detroit set, the big and powerful, the warden's friends, the people that the warden was talking to.
They were advocating for it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Unfortunately.
The worst person you know, unfortunately, found the best person for her cause, so to speak.
Right.
I just feel like the general public would be
indifferent.
You think indifferent?
I mean, there's a reason why this got published and circulated.
As you read, like people were...
Again.
So how would that be advantageous from a political stand? I guess you answered that.
It's one of those things that, again, since it was 30 years ago, the governor kind of just was like, who remembers the actual case?
Right.
All they're going to see is that I'm pardoning a little old lady.
Right.
Yeah. Politics are going to be doing politics.
If you want to be mad at something in the end, honestly, be mad at politics that made it so that Sarah, if not didn't swing, at least didn't stay in prison.
Right.
Also, again, I would like to figure out who the heck put her on child detail.
Right.
It feels like somebody lost their...
Somebody dropped the ball there.
It feels like somebody broke their glasses that day, got Sarah's file, didn't see the do not put with children, and we're like, oh, put with children.
On the other hand, you said she was one of 10 women in the Jackson prison?
Yes, but she was like the only nanny. It wasn't as if they were like...
Well, I'm wondering... the degree of crimes of
she was the only one they knew was going to be there for a long time,
right? Or like the other women had done worse things than poisoning children.
Right. I'm like,
I was gonna say, like, I figured I'd let you sit with that for a second.
Well, I mean, if they're in Jackson prison and they were females, I mean, they must have been
sad,
pretty bad people.
It's sad / funny to say that Sarah's crime, like, there were definitely similar crimes to Sarah.
Right.
There was nobody worse than Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah was the worst of the worst. So if there was somebody who was also bad, they were just on the same level as her. But I'm pretty sure Sarah was the only one who killed kids.
Yeah.
So, like, she still edged everybody else out. Like, I do honestly wonder, though, if Nick's theory that, like, they knew she was going to be here for a long time.
Right.
Honestly played into it. Because I could totally see some bureaucrat using that line of reasoning. It was a different
time.
But yeah, any other thoughts before we wrap up for this week?
I thought it was another good episode.
Good episode, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you guys for tuning back into another episode of Thumbing Through the Archives. We hope you were smitten by the midden. And
yes.
On that note, I'm Erica.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Nick.
And that's Thumbing Through the Archives. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
This has been another edition of Thumbing Through the Archives on WMIC 660 AM and 95.3 FM. Catch this episode in podcast form every Thursday after the program on our website at SaniLacBroadcasting.com. Thumbing Through the Archives, produced by Mike Gallagher, Nick Lean, and Erica Frisbee, with assistance from Catherine Connolly.